Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right. The big government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
It is June the 4th, 2015, and my name is S.M. Gibson, and this is Anti-Media Radio. How is everybody out there doing tonight? We are going to talk about the topics that the mainstream media refuses to talk about, the corporate media won't touch. As always, we're going to start out with some statistics for everybody that the corporate media will not tell you. 486 Americans have been killed this year alone by police officers. In turn, 54 officers have died in the line of duty, but that stat also includes 16 that have died in automobile accidents and 11 heart attacks. So that 54 is not exactly being shot in the line of duty. Also, the great American ally, Saudi Arabia, has beheaded 94 people so far this year. They've already broken their own record they set last year at 87. And the great, wonderful Chicago, Illinois, with their wonderful gun laws that tells us how we should all be and how well gun control works. 1,010 people have been shot since the beginning of the year, and 172 people have been killed in the city limits of Chicago this year. I want to start off talking about a story that we have up on the antimedia.org right now. It went up around 7 o'clock our time, around 5 o'clock Pacific time yesterday. It was written by the wonderful Carrie Wedler. Carrie, we've got you on the line right now. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing good. So I'm sure everybody out there may or may not have seen this article. It was the #1 trending article on the entire internet today.
I find that so crazy.
So congratulations, Carrie. That's huge.
Thank you.
So it looks like it's reaching at least 600,000 shares just on Facebook alone since last night. It's been up just a little bit over 24 hours. So give us the rundown of the story real quick, Carrie, and kind of tell us where you were coming from with it and why it's such an important story, you think.
All right. Well, I came from it from the angle that I cannot stand the mainstream media. I can't even bear to look at the things they cover because I find them so useless. And, I think that the whole story of Caitlyn Jenner is a worthwhile one in the sense of creating tolerance. Celebrities do have a lot of influence, and if one of them is taking a step to help make a society that's more respectful of all kinds of people, I think that that's really conducive to creating a peaceful society. As a side note, before I get into the article, one of the things I wish I had included was that, sadly, Chelsea Manning became a woman, and I think she's far more heroic than the former Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner. She's an actual hero. She's actually doing things for humanity. But no one gave her any attention hardly at all when she decided to transition into being Chelsea from Bradley. But As far as the article goes, I just got really sick of seeing everyone talking about it. And as much as I'm happy for Caitlyn and good for her, and she can be who she always has been, at the end of the day, the media isn't really concerned with her personal growth. They're concerned with pushing a story that they think is going to get ratings and ignoring ones that are inconvenient to deal with. So I just wanted to present some stories. I only chose stories that had come out in the time that the story broke with Caitlyn Jenner. So there were other stories I really wanted to include, but unless they had come out in the exact time frame of her story breaking, I didn't include them. So as a result, like, for example, I wanted to include some health stories, but I couldn't find any that broke in the 2 days that I was focusing on. So what I came up with was actually a pretty wide variety of stories. So discussing the passage of the USA Freedom Act, which was, moderately covered, but not in any significant or in-depth way because it was being sold as a repeal of a lot of the mass surveillance, when in actuality it extends that mass surveillance. And then there were stories that really weren't covered at all. So there was evidence of NBC, a local NBC affiliate, manipulating footage of a witness to a police shooting in order to make it look like the person who was killed was guilty of some sort of aggressive crime when he wasn't. There was a story about the TSA being almost entirely, completely ineffective at doing its job, which is stopping weapons from getting on board planes, but a Department of Homeland Security investigation found that 95% of the time they failed to do that. There was a story of a high-value Guantanamo detainee alleging that the torture the CIA inflicted on detainees is worse than even the Senate report detailed, and that was a very disturbing report that came out in December. A bunch of bankers have been mysteriously dying, and 3 happened in the last few days. One of it happened in April, but the story came to light this week. So that's just a variety. I got in some illicit cop behavior, because that's always happening. So I had to stick one of those in there. You can read the article. There's some more. And there were plenty more that couldn't even fit in the article because 20 is a bit too much to include for the average American attention span. But apparently people weren't bothered by the fact that there were 10. So I think that's a good sign. I'm going to stop talking because I've been rambling. So go ahead, talk.
So why do you think that this story resonated so well with people? I mean, do you think it was just the title of 10 stories the mainstream media ignored while obsessing over Caitlyn Jenner? Do you think it was the Caitlyn Jenner hashtag? Do you think it was that people are really eating real news?
Well, I think it was the hashtag. At the end of the day, people are very much attached to these little things they see on the internet, and hashtags they're clickbait, and because the story was trending, I think even people that were totally engrossed in the Caitlyn Jenner drama, or victory, glory, whatever, even they were probably moved to read the article, whereas they wouldn't have before. But ultimately, I think the success of the story is really driven by what I see as a very positive sign, is a lot of people think that this is not a story worthy of the coverage it got. Yeah, maybe it deserves some attention, but the fact that it dominated the news for more than 2 minutes on CNN or MSNBC, the fact that it took up so much time was really disconcerting to a lot of people. And I think that, George Orwell says that good writing tells you what you already know. And so all I was trying to do was point out the fact that most people know at this point that the mainstream media doesn't really have any substance. So I just wanted to compile a list of things that prove that. And when people saw it, they went, yeah, that's true. And that's why I think they wanted to share it. I think it's less about my writing and more just about something that everyone is really starting to understand and identify with.
Yeah, absolutely. It was extremely well-written article, and, whether it was your writing, the hashtag, if it was everything just coming together, congratulations again, and you did an absolutely fantastic job of getting real news out there to people. And if maybe some of these people that worked for the mainstream outlets came at it with the same approach you did, there could be some changes made in the world. But they're becoming dinosaurs now anyway. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you talking to me. Always a pleasure.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you. Have a great show.
You too.
Bye.
So, Shannon Madden, how you doing, sir?
I usually either say I'm doing good, or usually talk about how pissed off I am, and tonight I'm in one of those pissed off moods. Because again, one of the stories that Carrie brought up in her article that I would like to touch upon just for half a second is the fact that the FBI has been conducting warrantless surveillance using planes disguised as private aircraft. That is really, really, really unsettling. And again, you know, we talk about this on the show very often about a lot of, and again, this is all falls under the Freedom Act. The act.
The act of giving us freedom. Wait, but they're giving us freedom.
The theater. Yeah, freedom. But it's freedom. Well, apparently some of these planes, and this was actually brought very innocently enough to some of the mainstream press's attention by just a simple tweet that someone made in the city of Baltimore during the protests that were going on there. Not the riots, the protests, which were definitely not talked about enough. The peaceful protests, the way that we get things done.
Well, you've got to remember, you know, that's not going to get ratings. So, you know, they want to show a kid, you know, throwing a brick through a window instead of the hundreds, the thousands of people that were peacefully
Or as
protesting.
we've also learned, possibly a police officer throwing a brick through a window and inciting a bunch of people who are very agitated and very, come on, let's go ahead and start setting this place afire. And then we find out later on that it was a plainclothes police officer that was the initial agitator. Of course, they'll never take credit for that, and that's one of those things that quietly gets swept under the rug. But there's all these rioters out there. I mean, why are they destroying their own neighborhoods?
You really do have to hand it to police officers. All the wonderful,
have you ever been
all
to
the stuff they do, and they don't take credit for it.
Have you ever seen a picture of inner city Baltimore? How much more damage could they do to that place, as it were? Well, they burnt down the CVS. I mean, you know.
Right, exactly. But anyway,
aircraft was surveilling Anaheim, California. 40,000 people were spied upon without any kind of warrant, any kind of provocation whatsoever. 40,000 people were spied upon in one flight alone.
And that's what the problem
Freedom.
is. That's what the problem with the Patriot Act was. That's what the problem with the Freedom Act is. And you know what? Let's exclude those sheet of papers altogether and pretend that they don't exist. The U.S. government, we talked about this on Tuesday, the U.S. government's not just going to magically say, well, that law doesn't exist anymore, so we're not going to do this. It is literally 1984. All Orwell was wrong about was the year.
Yeah, he was a little late, but don't think for a second with the technology that America had in 1984, they weren't doing it then. I mean, let's go back and look at the 50s and the McCarthy era, J. Edgar Hoover, so on and so forth.
But the thing that's so scary about it is that people have been, I don't know if they've been convinced by the politicians, if they were convinced by the media outlets, or they just convinced themselves to not realize what a scary world and what a scary government this is. And they've just convinced themselves, well, no, that's not possible. That we're literally being spied on. And there's people that justify it by saying, well, I'm not doing it. These same people that says, I'm not doing anything wrong, they're the same people that are like, well, they got to protect our freedoms. These soldiers got to go there and protect our freedoms. What freedoms?
Absolutely.
What freedoms? Okay, ISIS are not good people whatsoever. I'll be the last person that's going to defend ISIS. They need to go away, and we can talk about, you know, how they got into power. But what freedoms? Name one freedom that a member of ISIS has taken away from the American people. Name any freedom that they have. Name one freedom that Saddam Hussein took away from the American people. Name one freedom that Bin Laden or Al-Qaeda or whoever took away from the American people. I can't think of one.
And bear in mind, everybody that you just mentioned just a second ago, who was their original employer and who was the person who was the entity? What was the entity that put those people into power to begin with?
Exactly. And that's something that people don't want to pay attention to.
In case anybody that's listening doesn't know, that was the United States.
You know, we funded Iraq while they were fighting Iran. The same thing with Bin Laden in the late 70s. We trained him. He was here in the United States as a CIA asset. That's not conspiracy. That's fact. And, you know, whether these people continually worked for him, whether they were turned on, whether they turned, I don't know. But they all did have their start as allies with the United States.
And they all rose to power, funded by American dollars.
Well, right. Even ISIS, how they've gotten their weapons and how they've gotten their funding.
And their training.
Right, and because they were the Syrian rebels fighting Assad. And how have they get their money through Saudi Arabia? That's why at the beginning of this show I talk about the beheadings. I talk about the horrible stuff Saudi Arabia is doing, that they are literally everything. When they talk about what Iran's doing, or they're talking about what Yemen's doing, or whoever's doing, they're always really describing Saudi Arabia. They're the ones beheading people in the streets. They're the ones that are extreme. I don't even want to say Muslim, because I don't think that's fair to our Muslim brothers and sisters here.
Absolutely.
These people are just crazy. Okay, my point was, I got sidetracked. My point was any of these things that we're talking about, what freedoms did they take away from us? Now, what freedoms has the U.S. Congress and the president and then taken away from us? And then let's talk about the freedoms that were taken away from us without us even knowing about. All this spying on every single level, okay? They say, well, maybe it's in the Patriot Act, maybe it's not. It doesn't. The guy that wrote the Patriot Act has come out and said, yeah, Section 215 is really not supposed to include what they're saying it includes. It wasn't supposed to be written that way. But it's still happening. James Clapper stood in front of Congress and said that's not happening. And for them to suggest now that, there's not any abuses, there's not this, they have repeatedly lied over and over and over and over and over and over. And yet these people still believe this stuff.
Under the guise of protecting us from terrorism.
Right.
Under the guise of protecting us from terrorism. Name one act of terrorism that the NSA has supposedly quelled. I think we talked about this last week. I think there's one small minor incident that they were able to quell, and that's it. All of this, and so much money has been poured into this. So much money has been funneled through there, and you have to wonder where all the money's going.
Right, but any time that they've put aside this much money to do anything, okay, they're not just going to turn around and say, we're not doing that anymore. And what Rand Paul did last week, and Amash and Massey and Ron Wyden, what those men did up there, it was very commendable. But at the end of the day, what were they stopping? And that's not their fault. They were doing what they had the power to do. But, the Patriot Act, the parts of that expired, and we got the Freedom Act, which is, it's the same thing. It's probably worse because it's going private now, and there's going to be even less regulations. Whatever, let's just say the Freedom Act didn't exist. Well, they're not going to stop this stuff. It's already happened. What has the government ever started and said, oh, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore? If they put a tax on you, they don't turn around and take that tax away. They may change the name, but nothing ever reduces in the government, ever. It always grows, it always expands. And when we started going down the road of the government violating the law, taking away your freedoms, that wasn't going to go back. That wasn't going to go in rewind mode. Once they started taking them, we didn't even realize it. And by the time we realized it, it was already too late.
Far too late.
They only admitted this stuff because of Snowden. That's it, because they were caught with their hand in the cookie jar, I guess. Because they were denying it, lying. There's no other word for it. They're liars, and they were lying to the American people. They were lying to Congress. They were lying under oath. These people should be in jail.
Absolutely. And
you've got Chelsea Manning sitting in jail. But guess what? What power did he have? He gave over some documents. Did he do it in the most responsible way? Maybe, maybe not. We could have a whole discussion about that. But you know what? What he did was for the American people. It's because the American people needed to know that information. What Snowden did, the American people certainly needed to know that information.
Absolutely.
That should have been told on day one. Snowden's not allowed in the country. And Manning's sitting in prison right now. But You've got James Clapper. He's still doing whatever he wants, just whatever he wants. Got a promotion after lying, and he got a promotion after lying to the American people. And your civil liberties president gave him that promotion.
Absolutely. Here's something sick. You know, we're talking about the ever expansive government, and why is it so compelling to be involved in this political machine to begin with? Money. Let me tell you something real quick. We in the middle of our show research, this kind of happened to stumble upon my radar here. The 2016 presidential elections, the contributions are estimated to could reach up to $5 billion. That's before anybody is ever elected. That's just to get them in front of the TV and get people talking about them and get people buying their corner. Hillary Clinton could raise as much by herself. Anywhere estimates are between 1.5 billion and $2 billion. You know how much good that money could do in so many different areas in so many different ways.
And all it's going to do is put another person, quote unquote, in charge that's going to screw us.
You know, looking over some of the major contributors to this current campaign.
Let me guess. Let's see if Goldman Sachs shows up anywhere.
Ding, 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 ding.
What a shock. The banks? Who would have thought?
Goldman Sachs, the Koch Industries, the Koch brothers, remember them? One name that I think is absolutely fascinating, Pfizer.
No, you're telling me the pharmaceutical industry?
Absolutely.
The pharmaceutical industry has something to gain from politicians?
Absolutely. Lockheed Martin.
No, the defense industry has something. Well, the offense industry has something to gain from politicians.
And this subject has come up, even though a lot of people have differing opinions about what's really going on with the Jade Helm exercises. Walmart is also a major contributor, among the top 10 contributors to the 2016 campaign.
Well, too, and you've got to remember, where are they based out of? And where's Hillary from?
I think you're on to something here. Arkansas, yeah. Go Razorbacks. Go Hogs. Suey Big.
So that's what, but at the end of the day, the people think that they're electing leaders when they're not electing anybody. These corporations are putting the money up to put their candidate up.
Bought and paid for.
And
yes,
so
sir. You're
getting the illusion of some sort of choice, but in reality, there is no choice. We saw it demonstrated so clairvoyantly, so clearly, so crystal clearly in the last election with Mitt Romney. Nobody wanted him to be president.
And why was that?
He would have been terrible. Everybody knew it would have been terrible. Even politically, he wasn't a good candidate. Let's take the good and the bad out of the candidates. Let's just assume they're all bad and look at it from a clear political standpoint. As a politician running, terrible politician.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the main problems that he had during his campaign, which is a problem that every single one of these candidates that are running right now, I might add, Rick Perry just recently threw his hat in the ring. There's another one right there. One of the common threads that we see is we see people that are out of touch with the actual common people, the working class in the backbone of America. I mean, the absolute, not just the backbone, but the shoulders and the back and the legs. And I mean, that's what makes up a vast majority of this country. That's what makes this country move. That's what's made this country great at one point in time.
But you have to remember, these people in charge have a God complex. And they don't believe that it's the American people that are making things move. They believe it's them that are making things move. They think they're the ones with all the power.
And when you're getting personal phone calls from the execs of AT&T, Goldman Sachs, Google, Pfizer, Lockheed Martin, that throwing all sorts of cash in your direction, oh yeah, it's very easy to feel important. Those are the people that they're really there to serve.
And you better believe that's the people they're there to serve. Because if they were here to serve the American people, we wouldn't be having a debate about the Patriot Act. we wouldn't be having a debate about the Freedom Act, because you've got the Republicans on one side, you've got McConnell sitting there arguing with Rand saying, if you don't keep this going, we're all going to die from terrorism. And I tell you, the comment that Rand said during all that just blew my mind. The words came out of his mouth. Now, whether he thought it or not was a different story, but the fact he said it was, misquoting him a little bit, but what he said was, you people here in Congress, I believe, are secretly pulling for a terrorist attack just so you can blame it on me.
Well, you want to talk about a terrorist attack for a minute? What's that number that with the very first number that you mentioned? 486, most of them military-trained police officers, have killed 486 American citizens. Now, when you want to talk about a terrorist attack, I mean, come on now.
Right. And that's since the beginning of the year. And that kind of, I'm sure everybody saw this video. I want to talk about it just for a second. Won't get into it much, but the Officer Brian Cruz shooting Dylan Taylor. For those of you who haven't seen this video, I highly recommend you go Google the name Dylan Taylor and Officer.
I believe Free Thought Project's got a link up, good YouTube link up. Yeah.
I know I saw it roll through my feed, but yeah. Free Thought Project, just Google those two names, Brian Cruz, Dylan Taylor. And I will say this, I want to preface it with this, it is graphic.
It is very, very, very graphic. Probably one of the more graphic of the body cam footage, photos or videos that we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I mean,
it's bad.
I had a hard time watching it. I had a really hard time watching it. And basically what it is there's a kid in front of a convenience store. A cop rolls up. He's got headphones in his ear. Cop jumps out of the car, pulls his gun immediately. The kid's not even facing him. He's just walking, minding his business, headphones in his ears. Can't hear the cop. The cop yells out. Next thing you know, shoots him. And then there's a kid, which to me, he already appears dead, but he's definitely bleeding out, going in the shot. If he's not dead, and the cop jumps on top of him and cuffs him, and the kid just lies there and is dead in literally a gutter in front of a convenience store. No gun, no weapon,
no drugs,
no drugs,
no any kind of contraband. He was just a kid walking down the street. Walked out of the 7-Eleven like kids do. Had his pants kind of pulled down a little bit, like
shot in the back, mind you. Shot in the back.
No. He was shot. He turned around and faced the
police. Did he turn around in the video?
Let's go over a couple.
I watched the video, but again, like I said,
well, it's so shocking and horrifying that you.
He goes. What I saw is he goes and pulls for his pants. He goes and pulls for his pants. He's just pulling his pants up, like a lot of young kids do. They wear their pants down. He's just pulling them up.
Got a cop in his face,
and the cop's going so fast,
screaming. The kid still got his headphones in, doesn't know what the cop's saying. He goes to pull his pants up and appears to be submitting, lie down or whatever, because he's got a cop with a gun in his face. Well, this happened actually in August of 2014, August 11th, in Salt Lake City, Utah. The officers were responding to a call of someone in the area was waving a gun. So the cop goes, and we don't know, we haven't determined whether it was actually at the convenience store or if it was just in the general vicinity of the convenience store. He pulls up to the convenience store. 3 kids are walking out. Apparently, there's 2 brothers and a friend of theirs. One boy, the 2 boys are actually facing the police officer. They see the police cruiser pull up. Hey, you see a police car pull up, your kids, hey, what's going on here? Well, the one kid nonchalantly walks out. He's got headphones in his ears, not paying attention to nothing like kids do, like a lot of folks do that have earbuds in or kind of tuning everything out or kind of in the zone, got their Slurpees, got his candy bar, whatever. He's walking down the street, and the police officer, from the body cam footage, follows the kid with his weapon drawn. The kid has his back to the police officer. Now, as we've all had headphones on before, we hear something loud enough to actually get over the sound of the headphones, and the kid turns around. As he turns around, he has no idea what he's turning around to. He sees a police officer with a gun in his face, and it's very, very quick. It's very instantaneous. There's no long, drawn-out interaction or this, that, and the other. He turns around, and as the kid turns around and sees this gun, he kind of goes to pull his waistband up, and you kind of see him kind of start to bend over a little bit like he's going to get into submissive state. The cop immediately, without any provocation, any warning, fires upon the kid. The kid falls over. The cop immediately goes up and handcuffs him and kind of is trying to figure out how he's going to spin this story. And at first,
you can tell the cop starts freaking out at some point because he realized what happened.
Yeah, at first the cop kind of gives a little bit of a show because there's one of the other officers comes up and asks him if he has his body camera on because the shooting just took place, and hey, you're going to get in trouble if you don't have your body camera on, which I think should happen in every single police municipality that uses body cams, and every single police municipality should be using body cams. Asked him if the camera's on, then the police officer kind of feigns a little bit of, gets a little, a piece of gauze out or something like that after just shooting somebody in the chest. Pulls this little piece of gauze out, starts frisking the kid frantically, trying to find anything, any kind of justification, any kind of drugs, any kind of weapons, and even wonders aloud at one point in time during the video, what were you reaching for? And he's asking that question. It's like, how am I going to spin this story? How am I going to spin this? I just shot somebody that's unarmed. Incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, and you watch the video, and it's like Call of Duty or something, just the way it's shot. And he's holding that gun, and it's so fast. But let's go ahead and jump into some of these callers here. Area code 682. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. What's your name, and where are you calling from tonight? Could you say that one more time?
Hello?
Yeah, it looks like we're having some technical difficulty if you want to try to call back in there. But, yeah, back to this video. The kid's just bleeding out on the sidewalk. I mean, it is difficult to watch.
And so here is the punchline to all of this. Per usual, the shooting was ruled justifiable by the Salt Lake City, Utah District Attorney's Office, of course.
And here's the thing that's just beyond infuriating with this. If you see the video and you're not Ray Charles, you're going to see murder.
Yeah.
It's murder.
Clear cut. Now whether
there's no way around it.
Now again, we're not inside the police officer's head. We don't know what he was thinking, if there was any malicious thoughts or this, that, and the other. But my initial thought was, first, why did he come upon some a kid who was walking and wasn't running away from him? And he had no idea who this kid was, if he actually fit the description. Of course, we've seen this story so many times about people fitting the description the description is completely different altogether. But
yeah, I mean, it's just,
man, it's sick. It is absolutely sick, and it'll just absolutely horrify you if you ever get to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you should watch the video. I don't know if I suggest it, but it's just ridiculous, and the fact that they ruled it justified is, I don't really have any words for it. I mean, that's the state that we're living in right now. That's the world that we're living in. We literally are justifying murder because we have a complex with authority. And we assume because somebody was given authority, then they're not bad people. Because we live in America. We would never allow somebody that's a bad person to have authority. We're the United States. We're the good guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So our authority's good. We're the good guys here. They're just doing what they're supposed to do. These are good men. They're just here to protect us. If it wasn't for them, everything would be in chaos.
Well, and when you say that, a friend of mine, I actually posted this or reposted it on my Facebook page, and a friend of mine reposted it on his Facebook page. Just happened to stumble back across it later on and saw someone's comment, well, I guess he should have pulled his pants up.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
People are brainwashed.
That is justification for a cop murdering an unarmed citizen, a kid, somebody's baby.
Because his pants were pulled.
And we're not talking about, and again, we're not talking about perhaps maybe a Michael Brown situation over who he was or this, that, and the other. We're talking about a kid, and it's a kid.
It's just absolutely sick. Area code 718. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. Tell us your name and where you're calling from tonight.
No, okay then.
Yeah, another difficulty on that one. Manny, how you doing, sir?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey!
We're sitting here discussing this Officer Braun Cruz, this Salt Lake City shooting. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's just tragic.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Stuff like that. It kind of reminds me of the Long Beach shooting that we have over here,
Yeah.
It really is. Like just nothing amazes me about the cops anymore and stuff like that, and it just it's like right now we have the state, the federal, and the local cops stopping us from doing a big march in Chapingo in the capital back, the state of Guerrero. A lot of people think Acapulco is the capital, but it's not. It's Chapingo, and so the war officially started already over there in Mexico, and it's kind of sad, and the cops are just basically, when you got all these equipment that the United States has sent down there for our people to be oppressed more by the cops, this country should have a conscience, but they don't. This country should not be sleeping good at night for sending all that equipment, and I mean a lot of equipment,
But I think, though, too, that so many people in this country they've bought into the fact that we would never do that. And if we are doing that, then there must be a good reason for it.
There's got to be a good reason.
Right.
Yeah. That somebody was doing wrong, or kid should have pulled his pants up, or he just didn't raise his hands quick enough.
Everything is a justification. Either A, we would never do that, and when they finally do see the proof, okay, it's like the whole NSA thing. They're not spying on us. They're not listening to our phone calls. They're not doing that. You're nuts. And then it comes out that they're doing it. Well, they must have a good reason for it.
Just like America should, we've got to have a great reason to send all that equipment down to Mexico. I mean, there's got to be a justification for it,
right?
Correct?
And that's what's so scary, Manny, is you say they shouldn't be sleeping well at night. They are sleeping well at night because they're off in La La Land, and they just believe. I don't know what it is. I don't know why people don't see reality, but they don't want to believe the truth.
Exactly. I tell you, one of the biggest, you talk about a double standard, I mean, here, Latinos and, African Americans are getting shot left and right. You go down there protesting peace, cops are trying to arrest people like myself that are, protesting in peace and all that. And then you got these people down there, haters, to go down there and disturb somebody's service, and this happens to be, Muslims, and you got these lowlifes, wearing these shirts and touching the what, and basically against the Muslims and all that, and they're armed to the teeth and stuff like that. Can you imagine if it was the other way around, and the Muslims were armed and all that, and they were protesting something against them? Man, they would have been shot down.
Oh, it would have been insane. People would have been outraged. People would have gone crazy over it. But again, double standard. That's, I just don't know what we do about it. All we can do from our end is just keep telling the truth how we see it. Some people may call us crazy. Some people may listen to the message. But, also, and I think you would agree with this, Manny, we're not saying this stuff to put fear into people. We're saying this stuff out of a message of love, and so people will just understand the truth. It doesn't mean you should be scared. It just means you need to be aware of what's going on and be aware of your surroundings so you can take care of the people that you love in your family and not be blindsided when this is on your doorstep.
Exactly.
But I tell you what, thank you so much for calling in tonight. We're going to get to a couple more calls here in just a second. But Be good, Manny. Thank you so much for calling in tonight.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. All right, area code 920. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Chris Munoz, and I'm calling from Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
People will just understand the truth.
Can you turn your radio down just a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. 1 second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, no, I'm just listening to your radio right now, and it's at the part where it's like, talking about the police state and like how it's like the police shootings. I think my biggest thing about that is that the biggest thing is that when these riots are going on, these protests going on, these police officers, they do everything to settle everything down. But once the protests are over, but once everything is over, like they stop.
Yeah, can you turn your radio on just a little bit more? We can still kind of get the feedback from it.
Oh, my bad. No, like I said, like what happens is these police officers, they put them in jail and stuff. When everything settles down, they go back to the same exact thing, and we stop caring. We need to actually keep focusing and keep on going until they actually do something about it. That's like my biggest thing about it. And we stop before anything actually happens, like the Ferguson case, where the police chief said that he was going to step down, and then when the protest stopped, he did not step down.
Yeah, see, I think you're right. I think that's one of the big problems that we have with the 24-hour news cycle that we're living in is, people are really mad and upset about something for a few days, and, they'll be out in the streets, and 2 weeks later, they're just, they're back to their life, and they're back to their Xbox, and they're back to their cable TV, and yet these parents, their children are still dead. And these shootings haven't stopped. Again, we're at 486 so far for this year. And we haven't had anything resolved yet. And I think not only is it going to take people coming together, it's going to take people being persistent.
Exactly.
Right.
That's like my biggest thing is I come from a small town, Oshkosh. The biggest thing too is I work for a Republican firm. I'm a strategic fundraising. It's the worst job I ever had, but I see it, and it actually really opened my eyes to see how brainwashed these people are. I say one script, and they give me all this money that they have. Even when they're down to the last dollar, they give it to me, and it's sad to see. And we need to actually keep staying persistent to change the government so it's for the people and not for the corporate agenda. And the police is, I don't know where I'm going for this. My bad, dude. I'm just rambling, but like, I'm really heated about this subject. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, man. I think you make some absolutely great points. Shannon, it's like, and thank you so much for calling in, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. You have a great one, man.
You too. But it's like he was saying, Shannon. We have to be persistent as a people here. We've got to get over this. I'm mad about it today. And people, when he's talking about the brainwash, he's talking about people giving over their money. That's something else that's a huge flaw is they think, well, if I give my money to this candidate, everything's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
And we're sitting, okay, for people to go give $20 here and $40 there, that does add up for a politician. There's no doubt about that, But it is the Goldman Sachs, it's the Lockheed Martin. That's where the money is coming from.
And those monies always come with strings attached. You remember when I gave you this money? Now remember this when you're sitting in that big chair.
Yeah.
And I need a $4 billion bailout or $6 billion bailout or whatever the case may be.
Right. That kind of goes back to Obamacare. Is they said,
screwed all these other people and I've messed things up. So you got to help me out with this, and you need to do it with taxpayer money,
right? Money
out of your and my pocket.
Look at Obamacare. Okay, look what it did. Everybody said, "Oh, we're going to have there's going to be some equality here, and we're going to screw the horrible evil insurance companies." Well, the insurance companies wrote a law that says it's now a law that you have to buy our product. So yeah, They got real screwed.
Absolutely.
Okay, area code 205. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Daniel Perez.
Daniel, how you doing, sir?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
Doing good.
Good to hear. I will admit this is the first time I've listened to this radio show, and unfortunately I kind of tuned in a little late, but fortunately enough I was tuned in to listen to the first caller, and honestly I would love to touch base on all of these subjects that are been spoken about, but y'all have been through a lot. But the first one I want to, of course, talk about is the Bruce Jenner subject, of course. With the, I'm not sure, I didn't catch the woman's name who had written the article.
Carrie Wedler.
But I'm sorry?
Carrie Wedler.
Terry.
Yeah.
But I did hear her talk about, she wasn't sure why, the American people, of course, are, necessarily not listening to other things, and they're only listening to Bruce Jenner, blah, blah, blah. And sadly, I'm equally as pissed off. But I want to kind of state that, my belief is, right now, I know I've read several things on anti-media, and they state, the media is not feeding us what we need to be feeded as news. And unfortunately, it's probably because of the fact that, you talk about capitalism, about the supply and demand, but the demand is what gets the people's attention, well, not the people's attention, but the media's attention. The demand from the people is they want to hear about this nonsense. That's all they care about, unfortunately.
I do agree with that. I think there is a section of the population that is waking up, but I think for the most part, there's a reason TMZ gets all the hits it does on its website.
Exactly. It's just like back when, what was it, flight MH1 or 370. CNN was talking about it for 3-4 months. And it's like, okay, well, when are we going to talk about relevant news? But unfortunately, that's what everyone was thinking about. And so what my issue is, I'm pissed off about my fellow Americans who don't care to even, not necessarily care, they're completely oblivious because all they care about is what they're fed, because that's what makes the money. That's what I'm sure like y'all have, how many callers come in or how many people, look at your website, you see I forget Terry's article. I'm sure y'all said, that's probably one of the most read articles that y'all had, but that's what they all also see too, And so, they talk about the things that make the most hits. And that right there is what the problem is in America. We only care about the stupid things that don't necessarily, not at all, that don't matter at all. And so I'm like, when are we going to wake up as a nation and start caring about the things that actually matter? As an American people, in seeing what's been going on, I don't foresee us waking up at all unless we do something to do something.
I have to ask you the question: Why do you think that is the case, though? Why do you think that people just want to? And I'll go ahead and give you a little spoiler as far as my own personal opinion on it. I think people are just really wanting to tune out. They don't really want to believe the absolute horrors and atrocities that are coming from our local, state, and federal governments right now, and the oppression that is bought and paid for by corporate America. They don't want to believe that the shiny superhero that they've come to believe is our savior for their whole entire life would actually do something as atrocious as shooting an unarmed citizen for no reason other than the fact that maybe they were scared, maybe they were too lazy to run after them, maybe they didn't really think to pull their taser out first instead of a gun.
Exactly. Well, that's a whole different story from what I'm trying to get at. With the whole police situation, I'm an advocate to say that, we're probably the most police civilization since, freaking the Nazis back in Germany. Honestly, you look at the statistics-wise, and yeah, we are. But also, you have a majority of our police officers that I believe, and I've actually spoken to many police officers about it, saying, they were in the military. So they were in the military. They come back from Afghanistan. They come back from war zones, rather, and then they they sit here and police our communities. They are people protect and serve the people. But in their mindsets, they have been burned into thinking everyone is a terrorist, or we are out to get the government, or not even that. I mean, it's so more complex that I would literally take up the remainder of y'all's time to even talk about this. But reverting back to what I was talking about the whole American people, about the Bruce Jenner situation. I mean, again, it's sad that, yes, that's what gets the most hits and the most likes and whatnot on Facebook, in the media. But that right there is why we, in my opinion, we are a stupid nation nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the country's more interested in gossip than they are their own future and their children's futures.
I mean, you turn on the television, I mean, what do you see nowadays? I remember when I was like 10 years old, I used to watch the History Channel all the time because there was actually history on there. Now I have to turn it on, there's nothing but reality TV.
Yeah, it's about,
that's a good one.
It's how much can I get for this item at a pawn shop? That's not the history.
Exactly.
Hey, whoa. Don't be hating on Pawn Stars now. I love me some Pawn Stars.
Hey, I like that show too, but I'm saying, yeah, I like my history because I like to learn history so that way we don't repeat it.
There you go.
But unfortunately, nowadays,
I may not know what happened in history, but you know what? I know how much I can get from an item I got at a flea market 20 years ago. So, there you go. That's what the History Channel is teaching me now.
Okay, well then, yeah. Then, I mean, if I'm going to tune into that, I'm not going to tune into the History Channel. I'm going to tune into, what's that, selling shit, selling crap on line or whatnot. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, it's a matter of, in my opinion, we as a nation, I mean, with capitalism too, blah, 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 and democracy, everything's broken, in my opinion. Because we have gotten to the point now where, especially, I'm 25. My generation, we don't care, It's not that we don't care. We don't know what we need to care about because we've been so brainwashed about it. And all of the media.
And that's sad, too, because you have the answer in front of you, and most of our pockets right now, the answer to every question you could possibly ever want to know. You can get on the internet right now and figure out how to build a Honda car from scrap parts.
You're completely right. I mean, I'm a huge advocate in saying, like, if I'm reading something and someone has misspelled something, I'm like, why did you misspell this? You have it right in front of you. You have it at your fingertips. And that is what we have for the media. I mean, that's what we have for foreign relations, domestic, whatever it may be. But we, as a people, and I'm not including myself in this, I'm just including the overall majority American people, unfortunately, they don't care because all they care about is what Kim Kardashian is doing, or rather what Bruce Jenner or Caitlyn Jenner did yesterday about becoming a transgender. And so, but I'm just saying, I am to the point now where I have no faith in America because of what I just stated. Because at the same time, I mean, they have, like you just stated, they have it all at their fingertips, and they don't care to even know.
Unfortunately, they're using that tool to find out what the Kardashians did yesterday instead of finding out how to spell word. But I tell you what, Daniel, I hate to cut you off. We're going to go to another caller right now. Area code. Thank you again so much for calling in too. Area code 808. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. Tell us your name and where you're calling from tonight.
Sterling Sheldon from Hawaii.
Hawaii? Oh, okay. Hey, Sterling.
Hawaii, yeah. You guys talking about a bunch of different topics, but the whole Monsanto problem, 45 years we've had the GMO companies out here on that island because we live out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They think it can be used as some sort of guinea pig testing site where nowhere else in the U.S. are you allowed to grow and test GMO products with chemicals and stuff outdoors in the continental U.S. They allow it to happen out here. They don't care, I guess, because they think, oh, the wind will blow it away. No, they're poisoning. Like, right next to schools, they have fields where the poison blows into the houses and the schools and causes sicknesses. But people keep focusing on disinformation, which is the unknown about GMOs. It's the growing process and the way they grow these GMOs GMOs is just confusing and scares people because they don't know about it. That's not the problem. It's the way that these things are grown. I'm 35. I've lived my whole life on a natural farm. No pesticides, traditional farming. Before they had chemicals, the way we did it, that's how you're supposed to do it. But these people use excessive amounts of poison and excessive amounts of combinations of different poison when mixed together causes other carcinogenic detrimental effects on people, and they're not focusing that. Everyone's just scared of the unknown, the word GMO. We need to bring to light the the process of growing these things, which is the problem, and have people pay attention to that more than the fear of not knowing what GMOs are.
Absolutely.
I think you just nailed it on the head, because I think there's so many people that say, the GMO itself, this one tweak of the gene is going to cause cancer, this or that. And that's what I think what they use. But at the same time, I think you just nailed it on the head. It's the Roundup, it's the glyphosate, it's the all the poisons, the chemicals that they're putting on the food because of the genetic engineering. And it's what they're putting on that is, I think, the root of the problem. Am I right or am I wrong about that? You've grown up on a farm.
It is right. Yeah, it's like you don't. And the chemicals they're using are perfectly legal, but in excessive amounts or combined with another chemical causes something extremely toxic. Like these newfangled e-vapor cigarettes, all that vapor. Yes, there's chemicals in there that are safe, but when combined, they become carcinogenic and detrimental to the human body. So it's like the lack of, it's just disinformation. People feed off of, there's sheep out there who grab every little, like,
It's
say on
hysteria.
Facebook
It's hysteria.
or the internet.
Up in hysteria.
They don't fact-check articles. Like, people who will share Onion articles or other satire articles who don't read more, they just jump on the boat with the rest of them. And I just wish they would take all that energy they have and actually use it to focus on serious problems. Get rid of the word GMO and focus on pesticides.
Absolutely. I think you brought up an absolutely great point. Thank you so much for calling in
Thank
tonight.
you so much. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, thank you so much, man. Yeah, he brought up some great points. I mean, we're about to get off the air here in a couple of minutes. Sorry to all the callers that called in we weren't able to get to tonight. But, so, yeah, we've touched on a lot of topics here.
We touched on a lot of great topics, and ironically enough, none of them involved anything to do with TMZ or what's going on with the Kardashians.
We brought up the name Bruce Jenner more than I would ever want to hear Caitlyn Jenner or whatever. The name Jenner Kardashian, I could go the rest of my life.
And hey, kudos for Caitlyn. You feeling good about yourself, great. But in the overall scope and the overall scheme of things, it really don't matter. What one person decides to do with their own body and their own situation to make themselves feel better, I'm all about. That's great. But we have so many more groundbreaking and earth-shattering topics to talk about.
Let's talk about Saudi Arabia having cluster bombs in Yemen with the Saudi-led coalition.
Who made those cluster bombs?
The United States came from us.
Absolutely.
That should be on the top.
Are we supposed to be using cluster bombs in any kind
of
war campaign
whatsoever? We technically didn't sign the law that says we're not supposed to do it. That's how they're getting around it. Meanwhile, if there's any cluster bombs used anywhere in Syria, aside using cluster bombs, we should probably go blow this country away because he's breaking international law.
That way, drones are flying all over the place, shooting lasers. Pew, pew, pew.
He's breaking international law when he does it. When Saudi Arabia does it, and they came from us, that's not a big deal. Thank y'all so much for calling in. Join us 5 nights a week here on UCY.TV. We'll be back next week. Anti-Media Radio. This is your host, SM Gibson.
Go
and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.